welcome back to Wrestling Flash. In this WWE and all things wrestling video, we are going to look at
protecting his Samoan family legacy on top of the food chain.
Roman Reigns was able to achieve the biggest win of his career at WrestleMania this past weekend when he defeated Brock Lesnar in a title unification match. This win stretched Reigns' streak of not being pinned to almost 28 months, since the last time Roman Reigns was defeated via pinfall was back in December 2019 when Baron Corbin was victorious at TLC. The Tribal Chief is yet to be pinned since his return in the summer of 2020. Now that Brock Lesnar has been overcome, there are only a select few names who could possibly hold a pinfall win over the head of the table. Number 5. New WWE signing Gable Steveson could be built into a legitimate threat. Gable Steveson made quite the impact at WrestleMania when he was called into the ring to celebrate with RK Bro and the Street Profits. The star went on to deliver a belly-to-bell suplex to Chad Gable, who himself is a former Olympian. Steveson won an Olympic gold medal last year before signing with WWE and is expected to be pushed as a credible force when he's ready to make his competitive debut. It's easy to see Steveson being the one to finally pin Roman Reigns, which could then lead to a passing of the torch moment between the two stars in a few years. It's unclear when Steveson will be ready to make his WWE debut, but Reigns could continue his undefeated streak while he waits. Number 4. Gunther could be called up from NXT to become a monster on the main roster. One star who has been making headlines in recent years is the man formerly known as Walter. Following his official move from NXT UK, the Austrian star has been handed the name Gunther but continues to be a huge threat regardless of the change. As the longest reigning NXT United Kingdom champion, there are big things expected of Gunther when he finally makes his way to the main roster. If the star is able to retain his current aura and be built up as a monster, then there's a chance that he could be chosen as the conqueror of Roman Reigns' undefeated streak. Number 3. Omos could be pushed as an unstoppable force under MVP. While this one is somewhat unlikely, it's hard to imagine that MVP would not have a positive impact on Omos' career. Paul Heyman turned Reigns into the Tribal Chief, and MVP could be hoping that Omos will be able to undo all of Bobby Lashley's failures. Omos is relatively new to the business but was undefeated until he came across Lashley at WrestleMania this past weekend. It's likely that Omos and Lashley will have a deeply personal feud heading into WrestleMania Backlash. However, if Omos is able to come out on top, then he could go on another undefeated run that could lead him all the way to Roman Reigns. Number 2. WWE could bring The Rock back to show who the actual head of the table is. Perhaps the most obvious man who could step in Roman Reigns' way would be The Rock. The former WWE champion is related to the Tribal Chief and could claim that he is actually the head of the table and not Reigns. Considering the fact that The Rock dominated WWE first before heading off to become the highest paid actor in the world, Dwayne Johnson would have a decent claim to being the original head of the table. There could be a well-written feud for the two men to devour heading into WrestleMania Hollywood, where The Rock could finally end the Tribal Chief when he's able to dethrone him and show that he's no more than a mortal man. The issue with this scenario is that The Rock isn't a full-time wrestler, so a win here would force him to relinquish the title and would mean that no new star is built in place of Roman when he's finally defeated. Number 1. Seth Rollins still holds a victory over Roman Reigns. One star who may have been overlooked is Reigns' former Shield teammate Seth Rollins. The Visionary holds a win over Roman Reigns from the Royal Rumble 2022, and since Reigns was disqualified in his match against Rollins, which meant that the title didn't change hands. Due to the WrestleMania build that came following the Rumble, Rollins was never handed the rematch he deserved when he was able to pick up a win over Reigns. If the company decides to circle back on this feud in the future, then it would be poetic if Rollins was the one who ended the Tribal Chief. The Architect was the one who designed the Shield and gave Roman Reigns his big break in WWE. The seeds were recently planted for a Rollins face turn, which would allow him to go after Roman Reigns, who now holds both the WWE and Universal Championship.